Welcome back, you all. I know that this is a video that a lot of you have been waiting on. A lot of people have been messaging me about this one. So today we're going to talk about the bold and beautiful Legacy Audio Focus SE towers. They're a 6-driver 4-way speaker with dual 12-inch woofers, and they sound as beautiful as they look. Let's get into it. I'm Barrett. This is Spec of Tech. Welcome to the channel. For those of you that follow the channel, you know that I recently upgraded to the Focus SE towers for my left and right, and the Marquee XD for my center channel. I'm currently still waiting for the Studio HDs for my rear surrounds, and the Monitor 7s for my side surrounds. But we're at about 24 weeks and counting for the surround speakers, so I couldn't wait forever. I wanted to get started with the reviews. I understand that there's worldwide shortages everywhere, and everybody's having some difficulties getting their products out the door. But when you're quoted 8 to 12 weeks and you're 24 weeks and counting, I think that's a little bit excessive. There were also some other issues that I dealt with Legacy Audio, so make sure you stay tuned for the Studio HD and the Monitor 7 review. I don't normally cast shade on companies, but it might be a little cloudy that day. But that is not this video. To be fair, the Focus SEs and the Marquee XD came on time, and everything went smooth with that purchase. And I will also remind you that I did purchase these speakers with my own money, so nobody has any influence in what I'm about to say. I do want to throw a special thank you to Amir at Summit Hi-Fi, which is where I purchased all of these speakers. His customer service has always been fantastic. He's been helping me along with this whole Legacy Audio delay, I guess is what you want to call it, but there's a little bit more to it than that. But he's been fantastic throughout it all. If you guys haven't ever dealt with him, you owe it to yourself to give him a try. His customer service really is top-notch. I've dropped links for Summit Hi-Fi down in the description below, so feel free to go check them out. Alright guys, so let's get into these speakers. In today's video, we are going to cover the price, the specs, the build quality, the sound quality and performance, and of course there will be some demos there along with a disclaimer, and then I'll give my final thoughts on the Focus SE towers. As always, let's start off with the price, and it does vary a little bit from retailer to retailer, but on average you are going to pay about $10,600 US per pair, and that's for a standard finish. They do have 2 other tiers of finishes, which is premium and exotic, and I have the premium black pearl finish. So just note that when you do step up into the higher tiers of finish, it is approximately about $1,000 per tier. So from the standard to the premium, you're looking at about $1,000. And then from the premium to the exotic, you're looking at about another $1,000. But again, that does vary slightly from retailer to retailer. But one thing that does remain the same regardless of the finish that you get are the specs. So let's get into them. But I did cover a lot of the specs in my unboxing and first impressions video, which I'll link in the top right-hand corner of this one. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on the specs here because you can always find those on the Legacy Audio website or my other video, so we're going to move through them rather quickly. The Focus SE towers are a rear ported enclosure, which is 55 inches tall, 14 inches wide, and 15.37 inches deep, and weighs in at an extremely solid 136 pounds. They are a 4-way passive speaker with a recommended amplification of 30 to 750 watts. There is a powered version of this speaker called the Focus XD, which comes with a 750 watt ice power amplifier. So the Focus SE is a true full range speaker. To be considered a full range speaker, generally it has to go from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, and the Focus SE actually goes beyond that. It is flat to plus or minus 2 dB from 18 hertz to 30 kilohertz. But there is a toggle for the treble to decrease it by 2 dB starting at 10 kilohertz, and a toggle for the bass response to decrease it by 2 dB at 60 hertz. So for me personally, I actually didn't hear a whole lot of difference when I played with these toggles. I tried them both in the up position and both in the down position. Then again, 2 dB isn't an easy thing to hear in the first place, but for those of you that have a room that may be considered bright, or maybe you have some modes in your room that are a bit boomy, this may help level that out a little bit. So to accomplish the wide frequency range that the Focus SE have, Legacy Audio used 6 drivers. They used a 1-inch Super Tweeter AMT, a 4-inch mid-range AMT, 2 7-inch silver graphite mid-woofers, and 2 capable 12-inch aluminum woofers for the low end that each have a 15-pound motor. And finally, they do have an impedance of 4 ohms and a sensitivity of 95.4 dB at 2.83 volts at 1 meter. So that's all the specs that we're going to cover today, but the specs only cover part of the story when you're dealing with something as subjective as speakers anyway. But one thing about these Focus SE towers that I don't think is subjective, and I think everybody would agree on, is the build quality. The Focus SE towers are built like a tank and are incredibly solid with their 136-pound weight, and I know it's not the most scientific way to test a cabinet, but one knock on this cabinet and you will know they are built incredibly well. The cabinet is constructed of MDF using interlocking joints to add strength where one piece of the cabinet meets another. And as I stated earlier, the cabinet that we have here is finished in black pearl, which is a high gloss finish that has metallic fleck in the black paint. I feel like this finish looks absolutely amazing, and as I stated previously in the unboxing and first impressions video, it does actually a great job of hiding dust, so you're not constantly having to wipe them down because of that metallic fleck in the paint. The black finish transitions nicely to all of the quality materials used to build these towers. All of the drivers and the surrounding material are very well machined and built. Everything from the aluminum base drivers to the silver graphite mid-range woofers to the brushed aluminum surrounding the AMTs looks incredibly high quality and matches flawlessly to the beautiful aesthetics. In addition to that, the binding posts on these speakers are some of the nicest I have ever seen. But of course, no speaker gets everything right. These two do have a thorn in their side, which I believe ruins their almost perfect aesthetic. And that would be the peg and grommet grills. I didn't cut the SVS Ultra speakers any slack for having peg and grommet grills over magnetically attached grills, so I'm definitely not going to be cutting these Legacy audio speakers any slack either. For the cost of these speakers, I would say that they are in the luxury category, at least in my opinion, and yet here we are with peg and grommet grills. For the extra couple bucks that it would have cost for them to put magnetic grills on, I think they absolutely should have done it. It would have cleaned up the aesthetics just a little bit, and for some reason, magnetically attached grills just add a little bit of quality to each speaker. The funny thing is that the Marquee XD center channel does have magnetically attached grills, and then the Focus SEs do not. I think if they are going to use magnetically attached grills in their speakers, it should be the same across all the lines and just have all of them magnetically attached. That being said, it is a well-built, nice-looking grill that kind of has a coffin shape, which I like to joke is because they kill the competition. I am the type of person that likes to have my speakers naked, so to speak, so without the grills, but because I did choose the black pearl finish, the grommets here aren't as noticeable as they would be on one of the lighter finishes, like some of the exotic woods, so it isn't a big deal in my situation. Before we move on from the build quality, I do want to give one more kudos to Legacy Audio, and that's how they package their speakers. I did cover that in the unboxing and overview video, but I just wanted to say it here again, because what's the point in having a beautifully designed speaker if it's not going to arrive at your place in perfect condition? And the way they package these, they at least make every attempt to make sure that it does. Alright, so moving along from the build quality, let's get into the sound quality and performance, because really build quality means nothing if the speaker doesn't sound good. But real quick before we do, please consider subscribing, tick the bell icon if you do, and please take just 1 second out of your day to click that like button. I truly do appreciate it. But another thing that I truly appreciate is the beautiful sound that comes from these speakers. So let's start our way from the top with the highs and work our way down to the lows. So as I stated in the specs, the Focus SEs use a dual AMT tweeter to accomplish the high range. The 1-inch super tweeter is crossed over at 8,000 Hz, which is where the 4-inch mid-range tweeter takes over. This is actually my first in-depth experience with ribbon tweeters or AMTs. Previously, I'd owned all speakers with either dome tweeters or horn-loaded tweeters. So my take on these AMTs in particular is that they're incredibly detailed, very clear, and airy. I've actually never heard anything quite like it. They add such a level of clarity to the magically broad soundstage that these speakers have. I didn't find these AMTs to be fatiguing, but at the same time, they can go to 30 kHz with incredible linearity, which means if there is a very high-pitched sound in either music or movies, these are going to produce it perfectly and linear, so it can be a little bit overbearing at high volumes. But in my opinion, this is not a flaw with the speaker in any way, shape, or form. They're simply producing the sound that the sound engineer put into the music or the movie. They're just incredibly capable tweeters, so they're just producing the highs, even if those highs were recorded or produced a little bit harshly. As I stated earlier, they do have that toggle switch if you want to decrease the treble from 10,000 Hz and up by 2 dB. You just flick that toggle switch down. But what I chose to do is go in my processor and just knock the treble down by 3 dB, which I found to be the sweet spot. The highs are still incredibly detailed and incredibly clear and airy, but at the same time, it takes away a little bit of the harshness of a recording that has a little bit of a harsh high end. What I can say is that these speakers provide clarity and depth in the highs that I've never experienced in my life, which in music is so revealing, and with movies allows you to hear absolutely everything the sound engineer intended. So moving on to the mid-range, the mid-woofers take over from the 4-inch mid-tweeter at 2.8 kHz or 2800 Hz. So the mid-range woofers are dubbed silver graphite from Legacy Audio, but I will dub them the silver tongue. The reason being is because most of the vocals will be handled by these two 7-inch mid-range woofers, whether it be male vocals or female vocals, although with male vocals they can dip below 100 Hz, which would be handled by the bass drivers. Hence why I call them the silver tongue, because they have a magic in the mid-range that just draws you into the vocals that has you feeling like the artist is giving you a private rendition of their song. The mid-range is dynamic, rich, and just like the highs is incredibly transparent and detailed. So when listening to Adele's new song, Easy on Me, using my Nuprime Stream 9 streamer, her vocals are so incredibly rich it's hard to describe. But the mid-range on these speakers is downright amazing and everything that you could hope for in a speaker. I've never enjoyed the mid-range quite like I have with these speakers with anything else that I've listened to. They're just so lifelike and smooth. The mid-range woofers are crossed over at 120 Hz to the bass drivers, so they do handle some of that kind of thumpy bass at 120 Hz and above, and I must say they do an incredibly good job and they're very capable. And speaking of capable, let's move on to the dual 12-inch aluminum cone bass drivers. I did state earlier that the Focus SEs are a true full-range speaker, but they do go a little bit beyond that by going flat to 18 Hz, at least according to the manufacturer. I know that there are some of you out there that will be thinking that these speakers may be a little bit too bass heavy or boomy, given the fact that they have two 12-inch drivers, and as a matter of fact, I thought the same thing when I purchased them. And if you follow the channel, you know that I am a bit of a bass head, so I was pretty excited to have 6 12-inch drivers on my front stage. But let me tell you, the Focus SEs are actually a little bit deceiving in this manner. They have never once come off as bass heavy or overbearing in the bass department. Yes, they are fully capable of providing you powerful and hard-hitting bass, but they keep their composure so incredibly well. Every low frequency is produced faithful to the content and is cleaner than Martha Stewart's house. Because, like many of you, I was expecting bass head level bass out of these dual 12-inch drivers, but instead I was greeted with some of the cleanest, well-produced bass you could ever hear out of a tower. So for all of you bass heads out there, or for those of you that like hip hop or bass heavy music, I'm not saying that you shouldn't get these speakers because they do have incredibly well-produced bass, but at the same time, you might either want to turn up the bass in your processor or accompany these with a subwoofer just to get that extra oomph that you may be looking for. So I guess to sum it up, I wouldn't say that I'm disappointed in the bass. That's not what I'm trying to portray here. The bass here is very clean, it's very accurate, and very punchy bass. It's just that I was a little bit deceived because of the perception that I had in my head before receiving these speakers, is that it was just going to be room-filling, room-shaking bass at basically all volumes, and that's not the case. If you do want to shake things in other rooms, you can do it, but you're going to have to turn the volume up just so that everything is balanced along with the bass. So I guess the best way to put it is that the bass stays incredibly well balanced with the rest of the sounds coming from the speaker. So what do you get when you mix the highs, mids, and lows all together? Well, you get material that is produced very rich, detailed, clear, and with incredible depth. And in my room, with just a little bit of toe in, the center image is like a laser beam. As a matter of fact, I've had people down to listen to these speakers, and it's one of the things that they pointed out, that they've never heard a center image so locked in as they have with these speakers. And the soundstage, guys, oh, the soundstage. When I first got these speakers hooked up, and I just plugged them in, I just kind of got the toe in right, and I got the center image locked in, and then I sat down just to listen to some songs. I was literally looking around my room because I thought my kids had actually come downstairs, because I was hearing sounds from basically a little bit behind me, but to my left and my right. The soundstage on these speakers is just so huge, it literally made me think that one of my kids was down here doing something. And of course, what would a sound quality review be without the age-old cliche that I'm hearing things in my music and movies that I've never heard before? And yes, of course, it is a cliche, but in this instance, it's absolutely true. I have no words to explain to you guys the amount of clarity that I'm hearing in what is being put out of these speakers. Is just incredible. So I guess to sum up the sound quality, guys, they have a sound and a sound stage that you would expect at this price point and beyond it. Alright guys, we've come to the point in the video where we do some sound demos, but of course that does come with a disclaimer, and the disclaimer is that my recording equipment, my room, as well as the device that you're listening on is going to greatly affect the sound, so don't take it as an accurate depiction of what I'm hearing in my room. So the music demos were conducted in 2-channel mode without the subwoofers and without room correction enabled on my Anthem AVM70. And for the movie demos, I did enable surround sound, but I did not enable the subwoofers, so what you were hearing is just the speakers with room correction enabled. So the first demo is a copyright-free song produced by King EF, and it's called Good Vibes. The next demo is a classical guitar duet which is called Lowly Tavern Bard, and it is by Techno Axe. And this last song demo is called Done by Matthew May. So let's move on to a couple movie demos. This first one is one of my favorites to demo my system, and that is the bar fight scene in John Wick, because it does have some incredible dynamics in this scene. So the second movie demo is the race scene in Ready Player One. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed those demos, but now it's time for my final thoughts on the Focus SE towers, and as I'm sure you can tell by now, I'm incredibly happy with the build and the sound of these speakers. Because in my opinion, they not only provide world-class sound, they also provide world-class aesthetics that I feel adds a quality to my home theater that just wasn't there before. Every time I come down to my home theater and look at these speakers, I just have that feeling of satisfaction or happiness with my purchase, even though they do lack magnetically attached grills. Legacy Audio, that one's for you. Not only are they phenomenal for music, but they've brought my home theater experience to the next level with punchy mids and incredibly detailed reproduction of the soundtrack. So if you are looking for endgame speakers and your budget allows for them, the Focus SE towers should definitely be on your shortlist, no question. It's hard for me to fathom anybody that would be disappointed in these speakers. And if you weren't disappointed in this video, please consider subscribing, tick the bell icon if you do, and please take just 1 second out of your day to click that like button. I truly do appreciate it. Remember to enjoy your systems. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.